Hello. It tells me I am live, and I hope that people are joining. And I will wait a little bit for somebody to arrive. So if you're there, please let me know how the sound is. Is the sound okay? Can you hear me well? Sounds good. Okay, thank you. So for those who are hola, that's good, thank you. Well, I need to check. Sometimes there are some connection issues. So yeah, glad that there's it. All right. So today, first of all, if you can see the very top comment from the violin class is that email that you can use to email me with specific questions, or if you need something that I can send you, which is what easy to send. And so yes, it's violin class USA in one word, violin class USA at gmail.com. Several times, I received emails with the request. For instance, last time we mentioned about Scales by Elizabeth Gilels, the book that I mostly use with my students rather than going into diving into very hard car flash scales. So, and some people wrote to me because I can send it to you. It's out of print, so I have the PDF. However, it's a pretty large PDF. It was scanned by hand, and so it's pretty large PDF. And so, if people don't have, I think Gmail maybe is the only one. I might be wrong. That receives 25 megabyte attachments. I tried to send it to somebody with Yahoo.com address. It wouldn't go through. So if you have a Gmail account and you need something, it's better to write from that one. Anyway, so today I was thinking to start before I get your questions. So I'm here really, hopefully, for live streams to answer your questions like this rather than looking online and then trying to type. It's just harder a lot of times to explain something when you are not you can't show, Anyway, but I wanted to start off today with some of the. So last time I think I went to right hand a bit, and now I want to go to left hand a little bit. So things that come up pretty much very frequently in lessons are the frame, left hand frame, and the one of the most important things is to remember to not have the thumb in the back, because that position restricts a lot of finger movement. So always going from the thumb where it wants to be, where it naturally is, and then inserting violin there. I have a video of course on that. You probably saw it. Hope you did if you need to. But yes, it's just right here, and you see how the thumb then touches the violin. It doesn't touch this way, which it always becomes if we move it backward. It becomes sideways. And this way it's not sideways. It really touches with the meaty part, as I call it. And it's never going to be looking like close to the nut. Okay, so that's the hand frame mainly. And one other thing is also important to remember is that even though, yes, we always say that the dexterity function, fast movement is always from the knuckles, from bottom knuckles, right? But it is not all. It's not really so for the first finger. So the first finger, when the first finger works, it pretty much works up and down like this more than this, because this movement is much too big for its placement on the violin. And then we of course use it when we need to slide that finger down. If we're sliding, then yes, it will be used. So like, so that motion of course is from the bottom knuckle, obviously. But if I'm playing, it's mostly is here. And of course, that is also, well, this is the same thing in a way as the famous vibrato, wrist vibrato versus the arm vibrato, right? And if you are somebody who have used my wrist vibrato movement video, I'm sorry, you already know from me that there's no such thing as pure wrist vibrato because simply muscles are in the arm, in the forearm. And so basically when we can say arm vibrato, also we mean forearm vibrato. So if we were to use truly proper names for everything we use on the violin, it will be forearm vibrato, this, when that moves. Forearm vibrato, not the arm vibrato, because our arm will usually imply upper arm. And of course, nobody vibrates with the upper arm. It's impossible. So forearm vibrato or forearm with more wrist component vibrato, because this, of course, still involves the muscles that go into the forearm. So anyways, just to let you know, or to be precise about naming things. So Andrew, you say maybe you could upload the scalebook to a website, a link with the scalebook instead of sending it. Well, I will think about this. I'm not sure if I quite can do it because it is. Well, anyway, I'll look at it. I'll look at the situation. Okay, so speaking of the scales, for instance, and what's inside of the Gilal's book, and why I like it more. Well, first of all, it's because it gives 4-octave scales. Oh, Diana Sverdlov says the scalebook is available as PDF if you Google it. Oh, really? Oh, wonderful. That is great. Did you Google, Diana, did you Google it in English, spelling Gilels in English, or in any other language? Sometimes, sometimes we can find things. You know what, by the way, that I have found, just to see, okay, it seems to be clearer than last time. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear it. Harmonic tube and melodic tuning scales are the same, or should they be treated differently? Okay, so that's a question. All right, I will wait for Diana to, yes, in English. Diana is looking for the English name of the PDF downloadable from website, from internet, of Elizabeth Gillis scale. So watch out there because that's a great resource. It's already there. Fantastic. Sometimes we can find things in Russian, the Russian speakers or, Russian readers also can sometimes type things in Cyrillic and it's there and it's not in English. But Diana says that's here in English. It's wonderful. Okay, from Steven, question. I have a doubt between harmonic tuning or double stops and melodic tuning scales. Are they the same or should be treated differently? Hello, everybody from Georgia, in Georgia. Yes, they are different. In other words, yes, there is a difference where you put certain notes. And to make things less complicated, um, some teachers go completely by key in what key you are, which I think is extremely complicated especially for beginners / intermediate players. When we are really advanced, we function in keys all the time. And so therefore we kind of don't even need to explain that stuff, So at first, however, when we want to play in tune, there are simple rules. So there is a single note intonation. I call it that way. Okay. That's my language. I have single note intonation and double stop intonation. Now, again, there will be some teachers and some Russian teachers who would not like this distinction at all. But you know what? It helped me a lot when I was growing up and when I was starting to play scales, and I needed to play obviously in tune. And so here, there are main things in scale. And all of that is first done on the scale, of course. So here we have G major. Sorry, that's not G major. That's me tuning, just in case. Okay, so G major. So that's 1-octave scale. 2-octave scale. If we go further than that, we will go. That's 3-octave scale, and of course there's a 4th octave scale that goes all the way to here, as you know. Okay, for intonation, we really need the only two octaves in the first position because intonation lives in the ear, correct? Okay, so here we go. A, G, and then you tune this G to it, or to be precise, to be so right. So those are easy to hear. They all have to match. Oh, okay. Apparently I have to speak louder. All right, I will try to speak louder. So G to G, and that was a little sharp. And you memorize the sound, okay? So then you go to A. That A has to ring like it rings right now on my violin. Okay, you hear the ring. So then you take it also with open A. Okay, and then you take that A and memorize all of these sounds that they match. You can also do this with the tuner in Pythagorean tuning. Okay, so that's good. Next stuff, next note. Next step rather. We memorize G to A, the whole step relationship. It's very important. So open G to the clean A, relationship of that interval, the whole step. Okay, so then we do the same thing to next whole step relationship that is easily to check as a perfect interval, only perfect interval. For single notes, only check perfect interval. Never check thirds or sixths for single note intonation. It has to match with open string. So here, that's how you check it with A open, and then it will be perfect. Okay, it will sound great. Now we say the same, we do the next string. We go A, full step, whole step. You put your B. That B is also checkable as a perfect interval, as a fourth, perfect fourth, with E open. Okay, so you check that. You can do that one. You can put this one also. And to that, you can find that. Okay, so those are quintessential checkable notes that you can trust. Of course, there's also, as I said, G to G, D to D, E to E. You know that. Yeah, and so which notes we can't really check with open string is this B. Well, B is checkable with E, correct? Yeah, so B is good. We cannot check C, and we just put it next to B. To best of our ability, we put a half step in there, and then here, and you memorize how it sounds, and also F sharp. You put it next to G, again, half step as to the best of your ability to determine. Hearing the octaves very well, and then and putting the G next to it. Okay, so that's for single note intonation. In any other key or whatever, they will still be based on these principles. Very importantly, we need to being able to build an interval of a whole step from anything. Like whole step has to be basically the same all the time. Half steps, for expressive intonation, as we call it, sometimes our half steps are less half when that's leading tone. For instance, at F sharp, if I go to D, I like my F sharp here. You know, the tuner, even in Pythagorean tuning, even in the key of G major or in the key of D major, which I like the best, it still will say it's too sharp because it will give you like more objective F sharp, and that will be a little lower. But to me, I prefer to have that one. I hope you can hear the difference. You know, again, the more you train your ear, the more you hear the difference. Okay, so, but nevertheless, how then, what's the difference? How do we know that double stop intonation is different? Very simple. That is why the G major is very good to introduce this. So, okay, so I'm in G major. And here I want to play a chord, a nice ringing G major chord. And my double stop here is D and B. And it sounds in tune. Now that B is in tune with D open. It will never be in tune with E open, with which it is a perfect interval. Here it is. Okay, so that B that is perfect with D open as a sixth is not good with E open at all. So that B is very, very flat if you will play like A open, and then that B, it will be very narrow, very bad whole step. It's all depressed, okay? The same thing with E. Or, okay, wonderful for single intonation, but it's not going to match with G opens. For G open, we have to move it back. Again, it becomes a flatter E, which will not now match with A open. You know, so that's what it is. So basically, if you have an interval over sixth or over third, you always have to adjust one of the sounds, one of the notes, one of the pitches. So for instance, I would suggest to my students who just start doing a lot of double stops to think this way, that there's like kind of three places of the note of B on the fingerboard, you know, three of them. It's so one will match with E open. That's a true single note intonation. The other will match with the D open, which is a true double stop intonation in G major. In this case, isn't in a key, or any other key in which D and B will be used together. It could be C major, could be A major, could be any key that doesn't call for, you know, D sharp. Okay, D and B. Anyway, and then a third one is one in between. That's the one that matches the piano usually. Okay, so again, those are very, very precise, minute changes of the placement. And best violinists, of course, have it down to science. I mean, fingers just move, put place exactly where they need to be placed. Okay, so let's see. Let me go a bit up. And so we have here Brazil. Good. And so Diana Sverdlov, click blue download PDF button on the left when the white download, then the white download from PDF button. I guess it's somewhere. Anyway, you do it because I have a book. I'm okay. So some questions. So we can use fourths, fifths, and eighths octaves for tuning checks. What goes wrong with thirds? Well, I think I just explained, right? It's clear. Yes, Andrew is entering. Not so. So there's room to interpret what's in tune. Well, yeah, there's room to interpret what's in tune. But you know, okay. So what happens here? It's not but really. Oh, let's take a perfect. Perfect. Let's take a third. Like okay, so I will get. I'm G, so I will stay in G. So I will have my high there. So. If I have a lot of speed, bow speed, which here kind of don't because I'm very close to keyboard in here, but if I use a lot of bow and it's loud, you will hear what we call overtone or tartini tone. Is that low hum that will be in this case on G, on the note of G. You can actually sing it. Okay, the same thing if you do. I mean, I explained this at the video that called double stop intonation. That's where I'm showing everything. I think it's pretty clearly audible in there. Okay, so if you move one, for instance, the B with the note of the argument or argumentative, I guess, maybe note will be the B in this case. So we're in the key of G, so we will keep G ringing with G, obviously, right? But B is obviously not now matching with the open whatsoever. So now if I will do this, listen. I don't think there is a question of interpretation. That is just not in tune. I call this, the combination of sounds as they fight. They're not harmoniously aligned with each other. They have a fighting ingredient. They're just like one against another. And so, no, it's not going to be interpretationally over, but it's just going to be out of tune. So, but of course, then we're not going to go into Baroque right now, right? So I'm not going to go into Baroque tunings and so forth. Yes, there you can go into interpretations depending on many factors. But again, I'm not talking about Baroque playing. I'm talking about our good, like meat and potatoes violin playing, right? So that's where we wanted to keep it, so that the intonation is really solid. Once you achieve very solid intonation in both single stops and double stops, then you can branch away, branch out, and explore something, and you will not be held um, in suspicion. It won't be suspicious, because when you can easily adjust and you know how to play truly in tune, like the major things are all in tune, yeah, you can explore different things. Okay, let's have more questions. So you remember hearing equal temperament tuning had some limitations. Okay, so that's clear, I'm glad. Link in the chat. Love your videos from Argentina. Thank you very much. Yes, I love Argentina. I have been to Argentina. I always wanted to go back. Haven't yet. But yeah, Argentina is one of my favorite countries. Yes, Michelle, thank you so much. The video on Tartini tones, I believe I call it the double stop intonation, cleaning double stop, something like that. But yes, that's where I use the Tartini tones. In Russian language, we use the word that is correlating completely with overtone. It was called, well, we basically use a German word, Oberton. Okay, so, but in Russian it becomes overtone. So that's how we call the Tartini tones. Good evening. So question from Gabriel. What is the best way for a quartet to tune their strings? Pythagorean intonation versus equal temperament. I would never do equal temperament. Well, never. Okay, so I have not been a professional quartet player. There are different quartets that tune. Some quartets tune exactly Pythagorean like we do in solo performance. In solo performance, we tune all fifths being completely, what I guess it's called wide. So for instance, what I have right now would be that kind of tuning. Except mine a little bit out of tune right now, but I cannot retune here. So that's pretty much, yeah. So if I, however, go to now I have a narrow fifth. It is still basically clean to my ear even, but there is a hint of being too close to A. So I'm not sure if that would be as bad as well-tempered intonation, because that's piano. Yeah, when I hear piano tuned very well and it's well-tempered, I don't mind it, but it is all out of tune. If you would put those pitch exactly into violin, it'll sound horrible, actually. Anyway, so there are quartets who tune completely normal. That's what we always do with wide enough fifths, and they can play tremendously in tune. I studied with such quartet myself. It was the Borodin String Quartet, which was the leading, absolutely impeccable quartet of Soviet Union. And I was just very privileged to study the quartet in quartet class with those phenomenal players and teachers. So they never tuned anything else except just regular tuning, everybody, and then they will be adjusting some notes depending on their role in the quartet, their role in the chord. Usually, of course, once we get to actual playing in quartet, we tune from the bass. If there, whatever the bass is, usually it is the case. Now, the actual tuning also, the tuning for the rehearsal, let's say. If let's say you're tuning in wide fifths, like the Borodins did, or in narrow fifths, which some more modern quartets do, but not all. Everybody's pretty much different. So if you have good ear and you agree to what tuning you're using, you can get used to it and you can use it really, really well. Okay. So let's see. With then actual tuning in America, the custom is that even in just tuning your A, everybody starts with a cello. And everybody goes, well, I guess, like from lower voice and cello, and then viola, and then the two violins. And some people claim that this is the only way to tune the quartet. I completely disagree. It's one of the ways to tune the quartet. But for instance, again, my teachers, the Borodins, who were the cleanest quartet ever, really, in existence, they always tuned from first violin, just like an orchestra tuning would be. So the first violin or second violin, the upper A, and uh, and the other voices will tune to it. It really doesn't matter. No, I mean, I will pretty much uh, contradict anyone. I would not agree that the only way to hear the completely clean A is to hear it in a bass octave first. It doesn't matter what octave you're hearing it. If I have a completely clean A here, fine. If I completely A here, yeah, it will be that A. So it's the same. It's absolutely the same pitch. So whatever quartet likes, for instance, sometimes violin practical issues. Practical issues. Practical issue number one, no matter where you start tuning, I would say the violin and viola should always tune with each other already. So whoever is the first to get it, let's say you got an A from cello, fine, great. Let's say viola got an A from cello. Violinists should not go back to cello and try to tune the same A again with the cello. It's silly. You have exactly unison. It's much easier to tune unison, much faster. Everybody plays the A's. Who needs to come up, you come up, and that's or down, you know. So the same thing backward. If you are first, violin, then the same the same interval, the same unison should tune to the same instrument, and then cello can tune to that too. Okay. So practical matters also are sometimes the cellist is the one whose strings are stuck or the tuner is stuck. Okay, well then we will all match the cello, fine, yeah. Sometimes it's the violin who doesn't have. You see, like I don't have the tuner here, correct? Because in America, for some reason, that tuner on A, people don't use it here. In Europe, people always use the tuner on A. I always had it on A. I really don't like going and tuning it here because it's very awkward from here to tune. Like poor violas almost always tune in here because of this. Yeah, it's very awkward. Now here we usually tune like this, so we can apply pressure and tune in. However, my case right now is that I have magic pegs. They're called actually magic pegs. They are fine tuners in the form of pegs. And so now, yes, I can tune my A just like that, and I never have to worry about, pushing it in. So then it's fine. But yeah, sometimes it's stuck, and it's better to tune to that person so you lose the whole like a half an hour on tuning, because that we can do. All right, next. Hello, if you're not using a shoulder rest while playing, how should you support violin with your left hand? Without the shoulder rest, and provided you're not going to be doing this, which is not good, Don't do it. Yeah, you support violin. Most people would support violin between the thumb and the side of the um, index finger. And so when you go here, it becomes really just on the thumb. And when you go up, it's all on the thumb. And of course, your collarbone too. So yes, that's how you support it. Um, James is asking for the scale book search for Liz. Oh, thank you. Yelizaveta. Oh, that's a strange spelling. Anyway, it should be, yeah, Elisaveta. I'm surprised to see the V there. I mean, to see the R there. Elisaveta Gilels. Several sides have it. Okay. How about chords like in Paganini number 5 or Tchaikovsky in number 2 D minor? I think it's Tchaikovsky. Yeah, Tchaikovsky is probably Tchaikovsky. What about chords? Which chords? I need a little bit more background for word chords. Diana says that she reposted the link. Perhaps it's not going through the chat and for some reason, but if you Google Elizaveta Gila scales PDF, the link from KUPDF. Okay. How to vibrate completely relaxed on G string in high positions. Well, you know what? First of all, about completely relaxed. Let me just, again, I'm a person of words. I believe words are important to get the meaning truly, for one speaker to another. So completely relaxed, I don't think completely relaxed exists when we are playing violin because we're still using some effort, right? So probably the most relaxed, right? So in higher positions, depends on what you're using. Depends on what you're using. So some people in higher positions, they just go to vibrate mostly with the forearm. And again, the forearm movement can be relying on more tension in the bicep or less tension in the bicep. That is important. Okay, if it's a forearm movement. If it's a mostly wrist movement, then there isn't really any difference as long as you bring your arm forward. Don't try to be here, of course. Oh, yeah, because you need some support in here. So yeah, the arm obviously is forward. So then. But honestly, it's not a very comfortable position to be in for a long time anyway. That is a stretch. You're forward so that there's a definitely compression going on here for everybody. No matter how relaxed you are, you will have compression right there, right? So yeah, it's better not to sit there for too long because you may get tired. So maybe if you're practicing there for too long, for several minutes, let's say at once, because normally we never spend several minutes in one position, unless you're playing in the orchestra in first position or somewhere, but not in the top positions like that. So part of that could be just the awkwardness of being there and perhaps the type of vibrato you use. So you need to let go of something in your vibrato on upper position and also check how much compression you might be having here. Okay. Novgorod. Vasily is from Novgorod. How lovely. That's great. Okay, Arsenty, thank you so much. The HTTPS is here. Download the scales. Being blanked. Anyway, okay. Magic pegs sound great. You know what? Pegs themselves, yeah, luckily, no pegs influence our sound because the peg box completely doesn't have anything to do with our sound. So yes, I had the first couple of my students got those pegs, some years ago. And I first looked at them thinking, no, not really. It should be all authentic wood. And then I thought, yes, I am changing because I was so tired, especially when they stick, the weather, or whatever, just they start sticking. Then you have to undo it. Then you have to put the peg dope on them, right? And then they start slipping. And then you have to, oh my gosh, no, this is so much easier. Just absolutely no problems. Maria, hello. When do you know a student is ready to learn vibrato? I would say when they are very comfortable playing quite a few things without vibrato in first position, and maybe well, and you want first and at least third position, or first, second, and third position for them. So I wouldn't, before they know the third position, I wouldn't start a regular child. Regular child. What I'm saying for um, why regular? Because there are always those who are just uniquely gifted, and then it can be maybe earlier, but I would say intonation has to be set. If the child starts with some kind of a, lines here in the violin or whatever, those have to be, in my opinion, already off by the time they start using vibrato. Well, anyway, I never played with those lines at all, so I don't really know how that works. But yes, I would be well established, intonation is well established, and then go to start doing vibrato, because vibrato is best done in higher position, or at least in third position. So in my video on vibrato, I explained it how we used, most of us in Soviet Union, in Russia of Soviet Union, we were taught that principle in here. So it's a higher position altogether. By the way, the kid can do it too. They don't have to play in there, just to put their hand in there. It's possible. Or it can be taught for third position, and there are, I think, quite a few videos. If you start at third position, then your movement will be backwards at first, like this. So that's maybe why in this country everybody is talking about, like, you can always vibrate down lower. No, not really. But that's another topic, very big one. But if you start teaching in third position, then of course you can only really go backward. You here upward is just not going to be comfortable, or go into the nail. So, but both are good ways for wrist vibrato. I mean, and for the forearm vibrato, I prefer not to teach it. I think it comes much more naturally to anyone, if when necessary after the wrist. Wrist is harder to learn, but much better to use, much easier to use. Okay, so that's my answer to when to start. Okay, last example. When I was entering my school, in where I had to then later studied for 11 years, music school. It was called the Central Music School under the auspices of Moscow Conservatory. It's like the full name, Central Music School under Conservatory. So I, into first grade, back then I was playing the reading concerto, first movement. By now, of course, things so far advanced so far, and all students advanced so far further. So people play like Vivaldi A minor probably already, just to enter the first grade. But back then, yes, I played the reading. I played without vibrato still. So very cleanly though, and with good bowings and bow distribution and everything. So sound has to be there first, intonation, sound, and then vibrato. Vibrato is an embellishment, so the basics. Okay. How does one, Michelle is asking, how does one develop a quick articulation for notes where one has to stretch? Third finger, D and A string to fourth finger, F, D on A string to fourth finger. Ah, you mean this, right? That, I see. Okay, I got it. Uh, to start good habits early. Yeah, that's the, you mean, right? So first of all, yeah, this is any kind of stretch needs to be done from the fourth, for the top finger back. So even if you're in first position, but you have the F to reach, I would start with going to F. Okay, F natural. We'll go with F natural. So in my case, I don't like to get to this shape, like very straight, or this one when it's broken in the middle and it's buckles in the middle. It's a very it's a compromise shape of the fourth finger, especially for some people like myself. I need to have support so that my finger functions the same way as the other ones. That's strong arc. So I would go to F, in that case, this one, and then I will pull back. So F I will hold, and if you need to, you can actually take your hand and just hold that finger in whichever shape, by the way, or you can hold it here and then stretch back like this. You see? And you can actually hold it and then really stretch back and hold this for a little bit, because you're also kind of learning to stretch. At least it feels like this. We learning to stretch, the spaces in between the lower joints. Whether it's true or not is another story, but yeah. So quick articulation, I won't go for quick articulation at first. First, you want to have a really good frame for that, and it's extended frame. And once extended frame is there, then it's the same action. You just take it off in the base joint. Here it's the same idea as you would be having it close. You just stretch. Never heard of magic picks, but sound great. Had to tune a semitone. APEG was taught. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, magic pegs. I believe that they are actually called magic pegs. There are two types. If anybody is interested about this, let me know. I will talk more about this. If not, I'll let it go for now. Beginning two lines of Tchaikovsky concerto. Let's see. How to bounce the bow. The beginning Tchaikovsky two lines. Where is the where's the bouncing bow? What am I missing? I'm lost. I don't have any bouncing bow in the first beginning lines of Tchaikovsky. Maybe later or something, but not in there. So somebody says, I started playing violin young but stopped after high school. What is a good minimum time of practice to get back into it? Recommended by one of oh, good. All right. Whatever time you have, let's put it this way, whatever time you have to get into it. I mean, you want to have some time to understand what it is that you want to do, put yourself a goal and reach that goal, even if it's a simple goal. So you would, at minimum, you would have to have 15 minutes. I would say that's total minimum, because it just takes a while to find everything. And then if you have 30 minutes, great. If you have 40 minutes, better. If you have at your disposal, that doesn't mean practicing, like start practicing and do something for 40 minutes without stopping. Of course not. So it's more of the time at your disposal that you can get into that you're achieving. An hour, fantastic. Hour and a half, oh, great. And so on. So you certainly won't, to start, you certainly won't need more than an hour. That's like, I would say that's the top, that's absolute top time at first, because you will be just putting concepts together and simple movements, and maybe both hands, maybe I would hope separately. Well, okay, you played already, right? Yeah, you said you played. Yeah, I would say probably an hour is at least an hour is a top for a while before you get everything kind of figured out back again. This is what I did after I had a break when my son was born. I could not play for a year at all, like at all. So then I had to regain myself, and I was in the beginning of basically of like beginning courses of conservatory. So I was young, and I had to get back and just to go back in and do everything I had to do. I had about 40 minutes available to me uh, in evenings, every evening, 40 minutes. So I used a lot of visualization techniques in between those practice sessions, but with the violin, I had very limited time. Then I was able to increase it to a little bit more, depending who could help me with my child. But yeah, so that will be like this. Um, I think you skipped your question about left leg. Oh, Gabriel, I'm so sorry. I will go back. Another question. How much strength do you think we should develop in our left hand fingers? Can too much strength get in the way of dexterity? And what about flexibility? Um, Too much strength. I don't know. Well, I don't know how it is that one can have too much strength. Unless you do some kind of specific finger exercises with weights, maybe. That's when you can develop maybe too much bulk, strength meaning bulk. But the bulkiest violinist, I think, in what we know, in recent history would be Isaac Stern, who was lifting weights, like huge weights, and he was really bulky there, which of course goes all the way down because you have to hold this huge weights with your hands, right? And it didn't seem to affect negatively his motoric functions or dexterity. But what you probably mean, Gabriel, is how much you need to press when you're playing. And the answer is not much. But yes, the fingers cannot be mushy. Like, if my finger is completely, like weak and it buckles like this, for instance, that I am demonstrate, that's terrible for me right now. Oh, I don't like that feeling. But, that would be a thing to be fixing, of course. That always happens. I mean, by the way, this was for people who are flexible, legs, joints, this. Um, that is joints that are too lax or joints that are hypermobile and lack of strength. So here on this hand, when I'm doing in the air, I'm just using the hypermobility of my joints to show it. But if it happens at pressure, like say if I press and I allow this to happen, that will be because of the lack of strength. Although in my case right now, I didn't use any strength. I just like allowed myself this shape. Normally, my fingers now are strong enough. They will not buckle. So how much to press? So sometimes you hear people play and you hear banging on the strings. That's too much. It's definitely too much. Ta 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 on the fingerboard. You hear that against the fingerboard. Too much. You don't need to do, I mean, you just really need to depress the string. And a lot of that happens with a hammer sort of action, like very fast, striking the string fast. And then staying there if it's a longer note, but usually longer note you will vibrate. When you vibrate, you cannot press that much. You shouldn't press that much. We never press that much. You see what I mean? So not so much. But yeah, if your fingers are really, really weak, which would be strange because usually they're for men, they're stronger to begin with. Men have more muscle. Girls, skinny girls, young girls, yeah, maybe. But yeah, just practicing violin will strengthen them a lot. Okay, I hope I didn't miss any more questions. Let's see. Later lines of Tchaikovsky concerto, just a second. Kenneth says by Boris Kutzin started beginners. Kutzin? I don't know. Is it Kushnir? No, not Kushnir. Started beginners in third position in his book. You know what? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, whether there will be natural vibrato or not, I don't know. But if, listen, if it works for somebody, it's great. Yeah, most methods are written from first position. Because in the old days, of course, people really immediately wanted to play something. And it's not quite useful to start playing in third position because you can't use 5 notes. You can only use 4 notes, there, or less, depending on how you start, But absolutely, I mean, there are methods that start in the first position, which feels like second, which is that position I use for Milstein exercise. If you haven't watched it, please take a look and you will see, when people hold violin here and then that becomes. So the exercise is for its own purposes, but some teachers actually start people there, especially younger kids, and they start them in first position, like. So not stressing. So basically, by eliminating the first finger, the fourth finger is very nicely supported, into that shape right away. So that's the benefit. So even essentially, I'm in half position right now, even like really close to the not half, but it doesn't matter. For little people, it absolutely doesn't matter. They have tiny fingers. So that's pretty good. It's not going to be probably do anything with vibrato. However, that's a good idea. No, vibrato, that will not be working at all. So, but for the shape, I saw a lot of success teachers who start with that one and then they can move here. Then they introduce the first finger and it's in the right place. It just kind of gets there. Oh, I think actually it's probably the better way to start. I'm not comparing to that method that Kenneth is mentioning. I'm not comparing because I don't know that one. I haven't seen the books. Probably I should see. But this this one, I have the book for it also. Not I have, but yeah, I talk about the book that I came across. Several of them. There are several methods that start with second finger like this in that position. I think it is really probably the most beneficial way to start for dexterity at least, and for strength and the correct position of the fourth finger, which a lot of times creates a lot of problems later. But if here in third position, in beginners are just starting there, then yeah, absolutely. Power to them. Looks like my area is too little, too rural to get in personal lessons. Do you think it's possible to get my body mechanics correct from online lessons? That's a question of MD. I do think it is possible. You just have to have somebody who can really explain very well in words, like truly da 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 da, this and this, and they could see the tension if you're using too much tension. It's not ideal, but you know what? It's much better than nothing. It's for sure. And yes, you can get to pretty good results, and then perhaps travel somewhere, maybe on leisure, and take your violin with you and have a lesson with somebody in person there so they can actually have their hands nearby and check, if necessary, how your muscles are. Yeah, yeah, you can. Um, Sorry, the later lines in Tchaikovsky 35. Do you mean it's like when it goes? There isn't really. I think you maybe you use word staccato, but you know that. Yeah, this is it's a pretty much um, what would I call this bowing? It is staccato related. It is staccato related. It's a like short collet-ish collays, which is taking the bow off, which is really funny. Think about this. Collet means glued. And meanwhile, a lot of us would use the word collet for this. Oh well. Okay, so yeah, it is. I suppose it's a type of staccato, but it is a sort of, it's a dashy staccato, if anything. It cannot be, you know, like too dry, right? So basically, what you do the series of these movements, which I would explain as little wrist movements. So if you take, uh, place your middle finger onto your thumb and droop your hand just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit like I have right now. And then just jerk it up to straight line and then let it droop again. Up, droop, up, droop, up, and then a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, relax. 1, 2, 3, relax. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here it is. That's the principle. If you could give a basic pointer about the magic pegs, yes, please. I've had a lot of either stuck pegs or slipping pegs. Would like to try change. I would really, I would encourage you to Google magic pegs violin, and there's two kinds. One kind is like what I have is what it has to be fitted into the violin by a luthier because they come in two different sizes, pre-measured. So the luthier will fit it there. But that type, again, what I have, if I want to take it out of there, I could, or the luthier can, and there will be no damage to the peg box because these pegs are not with like little barbs inside, so to hook onto the wood. The other type of pegs have a little bit like barbs on the inside part. I wouldn't use those because if you use those and you don't like them or you want to put the regular pegs in, you have to what is called a rebush the peg holes. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of bother. So just look for the type that doesn't need to adjust your actual holes in the peg, and I believe they are called actually magic pegs. It's their brand name. So my bow hair is getting dirty at the frog and doesn't grab the string. Yes, it is. To clean the bow hair. Yes, how? Or it should be repaired. No, it's just a regular problem. If you look at my hair right now, I don't know if it's visible or not, but there is this kind of that darker. See the darker part? Anyway, that doesn't play. It's usually because it's oil from the finger. And so if I hold the bow here and the finger, my thumb, not finger, thumb, sorry. In Russian, we say finger for the thumb. So it touches there, and so the oil gets into the hair. So this part, it's a small part for me, but no sound is there completely. None, right? So the sound appears around like 3/4 of an inch for Americans, or for non-Americans, probably 2 centimeters after my actual frog. Okay. So if that's that little, you don't need to know anything. But if yours is, first of all, really dark looking and like not good looking, yes, you can clean it. And if it's longer than this is, I would say that's the most you should have unplayable hair, but sometimes people have it like up until here, like there. So if that's the case, then you can take the hair off. Does everybody know how to take the hair off? It's really fun. Should I be showing you everything? So, but anyway, you will take the hair, you will take the screw off, you will take the hair out of here, and then not of the frog. You will take it off the bow, and then you can wash it with simple soap and warm water. But just make sure not to soak the actual wood, and then let it dry. Don't dry it with hair dryer. Let it dry more naturally. You can pat it with a tissue and let it dry. And after it dries, you use rosin, of course. If you'll be completely without rosin, it should do it. Yeah, no, yes, as I said, if you want to, then of course you can rehair the bow, and you can ask Luthier then for his tips on that. My Luthier definitely recommends the washing. Okay, let me see. Uh, Let me see. I have to go up again because I missed something already. Now, what are some of my favorite pieces to play? Maybe not necessarily for performance, but just relaxing at home. I like Bach, solo Bach, maybe because it doesn't require accompaniment also. Um, Relaxing pieces. Well, I don't know about relaxing, but I like practicing the concerto Arsenty Kharitonov wrote for me. So, and I hope we'll be playing at least the movement soon again. So, yeah, I like that. It's like really wonderful for my soul. So, some of the Tchaikovsky, like a second movement from the violin concerto, it won't be necessarily something strenuous, not now, but yeah, something like that. Cantabile by Paganini, things of that nature. All right. I had one, maybe like a sweeping bow technique. Okay, yeah, maybe. Um, he was a former professor at Vassar. Okay, Kenneth, I will look it up. I really will. It's very interesting to me. Again, it's if the book is not in print, but it's somewhere on the internet, that's good. If not, maybe you can contact me and tell me where to get it. That would be great. Whitner fine-tuned violin pegs and the magic pegs. I do not think so. I think that's exactly the two difference. I think these are not Whitners. But please look at the description, okay, of how they are mounted. All right, that would be the main thing. Sylvester, hello. Sylvester used to study with me in the university, actually. Is there an entire school that could be considered counterproductive or simply incorrect? Entire school of playing? I don't think so. I mean, only maybe like the old schools, old treatises, when, like you can see some of the books on how to play violin, treatise, meaning books means treatise, with actually there will, I mean, I'm looking actually right now around to see if I have a book nearby, but I don't. But yeah, there would be a violinist on a picture that was pre photos, so it's a picture that was painted, right, drawn, so with an actual book here, and then a bow like this, and that was considered to be, I mean, you see, look at what I'm doing. I'm holding my imaginary book like this. So book is here, violinist is here, and that was considered to be good technique. You tell me, it does it look like a good technique now? No. But, except for those antiquated methods, I don't think there's anything that is wrong. Yeah. Or simply incorrect. Yeah, incorrect would be to start simply incorrect. Yes, that would be simply incorrect. If some teacher still explains, that's from very old days, that you will have to hold the thumb here and then start playing like this, that is simply incorrect. If it is somebody who teaches saying like, oh, you cannot reach with your fourth finger, therefore just do this, this is simply incorrect. By the way, I did see some, it's a woman, I don't remember her name. She is also on internet, like on YouTube, like this one. And she actually shows that. And she has a lot of followers. And everybody's like, oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful. I mean, she plays with this kind of hand. No, this is simply incorrect. It's very damaging. It's really bad. Don't do it. Okay, so the wrist needs to be as close to neutral as possible. This is neutral. If you are shorter, smaller, you can go maybe to this, but never more than that. You lose about 75% of your natural strength, of the finger strength, and you will just damage yourself. You may damage yourself. You may be lucky and don't damage yourself, but it certainly won't promote your violin playing at all. Okay. To do the dash staccato, we always use the side of bow here. Yeah, not really. Again, you probably can use the. I don't play with flat hair myself, like on regularly, So yeah, I play with a tilted hair some anyway. So yeah, you're right. It's probably better to use the tilted hair here. But I never played the other way, so try it right now. It's not comfortable. Yeah, it's grittier, dirtier, bouncier, which is, of course, exactly what the flat hair will do. Yeah, it will bounce better, more, but here, no. Okay, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently when learning the violin as a beginner? Oh, a lot of things, actually. First, I will never go with my teacher's requirement when I was very little to hold the violin like this and like this and hold it good enough that you can go around and do things like this, everything, move your arms and your violin should just stay there very solid. Wrong, very wrong, very bad. And a lot of us were taught this way in Soviet Union, which, Russian school, Soviet school was pretty good school in many aspects. But that one, everybody developed a lot of clamp later on. And some people had to go completely away from the shoulder rest, thinking that the problem was in the shoulder rest. No, it wasn't. It was in that direction, like you have to really clamp and hold. No, you don't. So that would be, I would never do that. What else? I would make sure that if I teach little kids or I'm a beginner, that my teacher is entertaining, because for little kids a teacher must be entertaining. They must be good psychologists, like they're for the older people as well. They must feel the student and give them enough variety, enough of challenge, in fun way. For kids, yes, it has to be fun at some point and not just tedious, like you have to do this way, you have to do that way, you have to do that. Oh my God, I would do that differently. I would pay attention for myself, for my fourth finger. Yeah, I would get myself to be playing in that shape much earlier than my teachers. Actually never even did this. I had to do it by myself. I was probably 11, I think, when I finally had enough of pain of putting the finger like this. I mean, in my case, it was pain, so I could get, deal with this. Many people play like this and later develop pain. Well, it's still, I was losing time playing with incorrect shape and so on. There are quite a few things actually. Yeah. Sylvester says, I wish you so, but yeah, oh, okay. He had to put one of his kids to sleep. All right. Michelle, how would you break up your practice time? I find I spend more time on challenging exercise edges and sometimes spend less time on my pieces. Other times the activity is reversed. Yeah, I think that's exactly actually right. You go by what you want to achieve, and you put yourself maybe some deadlines. I want to prepare my scale to be in performable shape, scale and arpeggios, or scale with arpeggios, or these double stops, by this date. Okay, so I want to be able to play that many notes per bow, that cleanly, basic, very detailed goal you put yourself. So then you say, okay, and meanwhile, I also want to perform for myself, maybe, or for my friend. On this date, I want to perform this uh, part of the piece or the whole piece, right? And so, depending on where you are, you will be then monitoring the time differently because you just need to achieve the result. So that's what determines how much time we would spend on which. But basically, what you're saying, if you don't have a deadline, that's pretty much what you probably would do. So on exercises, we usually achieve something, some goal that we will be using in the pieces, of course, not by themselves, right? So yes, sometimes we can spend more time on exercise. So then, I got it. Now I have much less time on that exercise. I don't need it anymore. I got it. I can use more of the piece. So that's correct. Um, so again, I mean, so Michelle continues with it. So that use exercise is more important as hopefully will transfer. Okay, so will transfer. Nothing transfers at first. Absolutely nothing transfers. You have to transfer it. So in other words, if you're working for a certain, pattern of dexterity, like how your fingers move. Let's say they moved before, they moved like this, and now you're made them really correct in terms of motion, right? Just because you're doing it in a scale like this, it doesn't mean that when you go to a passage and in a piece and it's slightly different, it's not exactly a scale, but kind of a little bit something jagged and then scale, the fingers might still go flare up. So you still need to at least make an effort, at least at first, to transfer. Oh, how did I do it there? That way. And repeat it very in a focused way several times, really cleanly. Then they transfer. Yes. What was the best tip of advice you received on playing the violin? Um, Hear yourself, listen, and hear what you are producing. Daniel. Daniel is here. I learned everything I know from photos in 150-year-old treatises. Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. But probably not that bowhand, right? Let's see. Okay, let's see. Um, oh, thank you very much, Daniel. I appreciate it. We need to talk. Actually, we do. So Daniel and I, for those of you who, if you don't by any chance recognize his name, which you should recognize, because he has a fantastic channel of his own. And Daniel and I Daniel interviewed me for Tone Base recently. So it was a very, very fun stream that we did together. So you have a question here. Advice to the public for free. Yes. If you could start your own conservatory, what are some things you would do differently? I mean, I think in a way, a little bit, in teaching, I just explained it a little bit. My own conservatory. I have to think about this. It's an important question. I really think that a lot of things that were done in my school in the first years were actually good. Like the structure, I like the structure. The fact that we had rhythmics or ritmika, as it was called in Russian. It's a kind of like eurythmics, but it's not exactly eurythmics. At least it's of that nature. So that will be extremely useful. So I think every little kids have to do it. They have to be able to move to music. They have to be able to move rhythmically. So I definitely would have rhythmica in there in conservatory. I'm thinking my own conservatory, like including little kids or just older people. If it's older people, no, we probably won't. Although, you know what? In this country, if they haven't done any eurythmics, I probably would have a class. I would definitely have a class on like Alexander technique or posture in the conservatory. Absolutely. So people are well aligned and not tense. And that is not that way in most cases. I know Juilliard has a class on Alexander technique. And so, yeah, their benefits are enormous. Um, uh, but in most places, there is no class, and people have to do it privately, and it's really expensive, probably, and just accessibility is an issue. So I would have definitely a class on good posture and how to achieve it. Maybe it will include Alexander technique and then also strengthening exercises that we need, depending on the instrument, especially. Um, and then ear training for sure. Ear training together with the form, with the music history, music theory, but not in the form that we were taught, okay, in a different way. Because we constantly went from the beginning into like times immemorial and everybody was bored. No, you have to go from here and now and the pieces that we like and know. And then from them, I think, go into the knowing the form and so on. So, but you and I can talk about this more. Daniel. Okay. Okay, let me see. Now I will go to, I think that's maybe the ending. Let me see. Yes, Michelle, that's right. Yes. Let's see, I'm going back. Um, so when do we use cool is asking JG? When do we use flat violin bow hair versus side of the bow hair? Different styles like Mozart, Paganini, Tchaikovsky. In my personal opinion, it's not so much about the styles; it's about the style of your playing that determines the most. If it is somebody can do this, depending on the style, then yes, the more elegant the style, the more you want to use the side of the hair. Not too much though. I mean, that's a problem with people who use the side of the hair or tilt. I call the tilted hair, tilted bow. Um, that is the problem that we sometimes over tilt, and then it's not good either. So, but yes, and when you project more, when you need to have more oomph to your sound, then you go to flat hair. But the thing is that the better you know the bow, the better you know that this is. Um, Yes, I can give an example of Isaac Stern in Moscow. Just a second. That's a good idea. Thank you. I have a little helping here, hint. Um, but the thing is that for those people who really play seriously, we are extremely sensitive of how we hold the bow all the time. And so it's like, how do you, I don't know, how do you write? Do you change the way you write with a pen or pencil, right? Do you change the way you grab the pencil depending on the style of the book that you're writing or letter? Probably not. You're just holding it the way it's comfortable to write. And then you can use more pressure here, less pressure there. It's kind of like this with the bow. So if I play constantly with a tilt, what happens here? I don't feel my tips of my fingers in proper form for me. They will not be in touch with the frog, and it will be not good for me if they suddenly do. It means I'm grabbing. So people who play with flat hair, they constantly will be basically in touch with the frog, and it's a very different sensation. So I don't know. Some people claim that they can do both. Honestly, I haven't seen a single good result of these claims. Claims can be made, but the practicality of that, no, it's either one or the other, and both are valid. Both are valid. And yes, you would, yeah, if you play with flat hair, yeah, play a little less flat when you play Mozart. It would be best. Yeah. Julia, this is the first time I have caught your live stream. Is this something you do on a regular basis and time? You know what? I try to do it now more regularly. So last week was on Saturday. I probably will try to do it. It's I think between Friday and Saturday, or Saturday and Sunday we did it. But basically weekend. Weekend seems to work for more people. So last time I think I did it on Sunday at 2 o'clock of my Texas time. So maybe the people in Europe could watch it at the end of their day. And this one is more for other countries and including India. I usually have people from India watching. So yes, I will try to do it more, maybe every week if I'm lucky. I just have so many students right now in the university, so we'll see. I'll try to do every week, maybe every 2 weeks. Yes. Have you ever been using Baroque bow on your violin? I tried the Baroque bow, but honestly, it was a very bad bow. You know, like with every bow, if you get a bad bow, it's not good. So I tried a couple times a good. Yeah, I mean, it's great to use Baroque bow for instance, playing Bach. That is wonderful. I think it's really good. And even sometimes some people use it with metal strings, like well, metal wound, like I have. It's also possible. And some people use more gut strings for that, and just like different outfit, on a violin. But yeah, you can use Baroque bow definitely. Um, so somebody writes to Daniel, listening is in your video and is exercise. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Joseph, is it necessary for advanced students, professionals who learned all etudes at a young age to still study them on a daily basis after scales as suggested by Kogan, 30 minutes, 30 minutes? Well, Kogan loved the technique. If you have time, and yes, okay. Honestly speaking, yes, it is a good idea. I don't know, maybe Leonid Kogan himself, he was really an amazing virtuoso. Very few of those are ever in existence, right? So he probably played all the etudes. I haven't played all the etudes. I don't know people who played all the etudes. I don't know if it's possible. There's so many of them. But if you played all the major ones, yeah, it's good to come back and repeat, because it's a different types of technique that you're repeating, and it's not as dry as to play exercises of some sort. Yeah, so I would say yes, 30 minutes and 30 minutes. Hey, if you're so lucky you have that much time for that, and then also practice something else, yeah, great. If you don't, then you will reduce the time to the time that you have. How important is theory for violinist repertoire? In all conservatory, students are spending lots of time doing theory unrelated to instrument repertoire and musicianship. Yeah, I agree with that. Theory is important, but it has to be relating to what we do. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, I also spent years and years on theory that was, you kind of know, like, it's important to know theory, but you don't know why exactly. But now when I teach, for instance, I will start always from the form. I mean, that's part of the theory, the form of the concerto or the piece. And then from bigger to smaller, then it's really great. It's important to know. Okay, let me go back up here. So Daniel says, I think there's a big market now for adults doing what kids did in excellent childhood education systems. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah. Granted, Heifetz was a complete violinist. Arguably, how come so few people look like him in performance? I'm talking about posture, bow technique, unaffected facial expression, etc. Well, first of all, let's start from the last part of your sentence, unaffected facial expressions. To me, it's wonderful. I like that. I myself, when I play, I mostly play with unaffected facial expressions. And that's how I was raised in that culture. Culture was pretty much, you have to sound what you feel. You have to express. Interpretation goes through the sound and not through your face. These days, it's also, everybody knows that we human beings were very visual, and most of our input is visual. And since I think fewer and fewer people really have the musical education, or they listen selectively. They know what they're listening for, even if they're not musicians, by the way. So more people are paying attention to visuals, and the visuals became extraordinarily important. And here is the imbalance now: is full swing is imbalance. People are playing. You can turn the volume off, and you don't hear them actually. You see them. You kind of think that you know what they're playing, maybe, if you especially if you know the title of the piece, like, oh yeah, I mean, because they emote on their faces. Unfortunately, a lot of times they don't even emote nearly so well in the sound. That's really pathetic, in my opinion. But that is the fact. So it's not even a fad. It's just like culturally became so, well, just like with the fashion, you look what's went gone with the fashion over the last, I don't know, 100 years, right? Heifetz, 100 years. How much of naked body did we see back in the 1930s, 1940s, and how much we see now? You can argue for or against, but the point is, it's just going that way. And so the same thing with facial expressions. Unfortunately, it went that way. Now, about other things, um, how he looked in the performance. For instance, yes, he took his bow this way and he always played it here. Nowadays, we know that's not the most ergonomic, like user-friendly way to continue playing. By the way, to start playing, that's probably the best way to start, because you can hold the bow better this way than when you go into now what we do, basically ergonomically better position, better for advanced technique levels, but not better to start. So apparently young Yasha took the bow here and just learned how to play with this. He had a higher elbow for this to deal with that. That's the posture also. Violin was not moving, he was not moving, the right arm was moving. For most people, if they play like this these days, well, not these days, any days. I mean, Yasha Heifetz was Yasha Heifetz. There were not many of them. There were several, not only him, of course, several who adjusted to this hold, and very well so, because you can adjust to pretty much anything. And if you have a sound in your ear, you can adjust to anything. The amazing thing about those players would be that it did not impede them with like off-string bowings and all kinds of extras that for most people will be that will be an impediment for most people, because most people are not so bodily intuitive as Yasha Heifetz was. So now one of the people who does play with this exactly that hand, but doesn't look like Yasha Heifetz. Why? Much taller. Violin is not located in the same place where Heifetz's was, and that is Kavakos, Leonidas Kavakos, who is playing with the same very deep, I would say, deep or old Russian, you can call it. I call it old Russian. So basically you hold the bow past this joint, or on the joint and then past the joint when you're at the tip. So Kavakos is playing like that, but his elbow is really low. His height and also his violin is much more forward. So that's the ergonomic thing. Well, in that position, it's an ergonomic thing for him. And again, I won't be able to teach anybody like that. It's to me, even just getting that position is very uncomfortable. But obviously for him, it's comfortable. So it was comfortable for Yasha Heifetz. So I hope it answers the question. Next one, David. I know the question might seem naive or narrow-sighted, but if you disagree with the premise, do you consider any one violinist complete? Well, I consider many violinists complete. I mean, yeah, there are quite a few of them. I mean, one of the most complete violinists, I think, is Roman Kim. I just adore that guy. He's just amazing, amazing, amazing what he can do. Uh, just as a violinist, yeah. Well, Yasha Heifetz wasn't bad either, and many, many others. Um, okay, uh, just a second. Let me see. I am jumping here. Feels reassuring to see Daniel here. Well, yes, it's wonderful to see Daniel here. I like the sense of violin teacher community arising on YouTube. Yes, and I love that too. And I know some other channels also that I sometimes refer to. Daniel's is definitely one, and there are a couple more that are really, really good. And they're my colleagues in different places. Some of them started the channels much earlier than I did, and they really know what they're doing. And I love camaraderie between the teachers. I think that's the best thing. I promote the same thing in my studio among my violinists, my students, because there's so much of this, jealousy and competitiveness, like bad competitiveness going on. Oh, just toxic. I don't like that. So, yeah. Well, it also probably helps that I grew up in a violin family. Mother violinist, father violinist, my brother violinist, now my nephew and niece are violinists. Yeah, just all kind of violin community right there. Okay, so let me see. I need to answer Madeline. Oh, well, thank you for donating. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So Maciek Esh is asking, as adult beginner, found your videos on stream very useful. Thanks from Poland. Yes, you're very welcome. Yes, I can say that in Polish, but I won't now, just in case. How to control vibrato, such as going from a slow vibrato to increase vibrato speed, a fast vibrato to different musical color tone. Well, if you use a wrist vibrato, more wrist vibrato, it's rather it's not too hard. You literally speed it up. You just vibrate a little bit faster, and then you vibrate a little bit slower. So when you do vibrate faster, sometimes you would end a little bit more of the arm, maybe, and or sometimes I would do it right in here. But yeah, it's basically speed of vibrato. Again, yes, I think Arsenti already posted link of the vibrato. Yeah, if you practice with a metronome with a timed vibrato, it will be helpful. You'll be able to speed it up and then use it. I've heard you say before that you don't teach beginners. May I politely ask why not? I can teach a beginner who is an adult or of what I call of conscious age. I can absolutely teach beginners, and I did teach beginners when I had time, when I wasn't swamped at my university with the people, in my own studio that are all performance majors and have to participate in competitions and auditions and all kinds of stuff, right? So, that, yeah, of course I can teach beginners. I just don't want to teach little kids, because you have to have special technique, special games to have it entertaining and very useful as well. That's what I mean by beginners, only that. So I've heard of several teachers that choose to teach more advanced students and other prefer beginners. Yeah, that's why. So it's a like specialty. For instance, I'm a violinist. Playing wise, I performed mostly solo. I would be playing recitals, or I would play like concerto with the orchestra, right? I would play Tchaikovsky concerto, this concerto, that concerto. Okay, so that's one specialty. Then as a teacher, I'm very comfortable teaching what I myself was doing. I did some quartet playing, let's say. Of course, I played quartets in the conservatory in a class growing up for 5 years. And then I also played quartets sometimes with my colleagues, but never professionally. Like professional quartet playing is a different specialty in our field. If you're a professional quartet player, you will know much more about how to play in quartet than I will know, even though I had this training with wonderful teachers and some experience, of course. It's very different. Orchestral playing. If you're a professional orchestral player, you will be an expert on how to do a lot of excerpts, professional orchestral excerpts, and many other things that people do. Again, in the orchestra, it's a different specialty. Okay, so it's the same thing with teaching. Who you teach in terms of age. What age is the best for you to develop communication, to establish communication for people to understand you, and so on and so forth. But honestly, also, some people teach more advanced students. Again, I hope we were talking about teaching advanced students and not just coaching advanced students, because pretty much anybody can coach advanced students and call it teaching. It's very different. Coaching is like giving like little musical advice here and there. It's not that hard. You don't have to know much except just love music and have some ideas and just put them forward. And a good student will be able to figure it out all for you and without your help to technique or these things sort of things. So yeah, it's also different. Let me see. Um, Yasha Heifetz. Yeah, okay. There's a logic schooling of learning lots of violinist repertoire, uh, like Vietang, Spohr, Wieniawski, Paganini concertos before the popular standard concertos. Of course, of course, of course, of course. Yeah, we first have to learn the violin repertoire written by violinists. Why? Because it comes from the violin. Even when these composers, I mean, like Spohr, for instance, well, any of them, of course, were also composers. That's how we have pieces written by them, right? But the pieces were born from playing, rather than somebody who, like Bruch, whose violin concerto was born from just the music itself and not from necessarily violin and how it goes into your hands, or Sanson, or many others, Tchaikovsky, so on. So yes, and my schooling, that the where I grew up, the Russian Soviet school, yeah, it was very big on this. We played a lot of repertoire written by violinists for violinists. I think it was very good. Um, yeah, yes, Yasha Heifetz wasn't a bad violinist exactly. Um, I watched the listening lessons, jazz standards. The teacher breaks down the recording of songs playing the is something you won't do for classical piece. It's a very good point. I probably would be a good idea to do this. Yeah, it possibly can be done, of course. Yeah, that's what I do in lessons, in my one-on-one lessons at university a lot of times. But it would be not so much recording. Sometimes maybe I could even use recordings. Usually it is just between me and the student. I would show and we will talk on the day play. I will, we discuss, I'll show, and so on. Are any other subtle red flags that you should be aware of in your teachers? Subtle red flags. Well, let me think. I don't know. Well, you can learn if you want to learn. Well, I guess for me personally, a red flag would be if I ask a question and my teacher would say, I have no idea, just do it. Just do what I said, not explain, not think about anything like what I ask. That probably would be a red flag for me. Yeah. But other than that, it's hard to tell. It really is a hard question. You mentioned Kogan love technique, but Philippe Hirschhorn, who Daniel shared an amazing video of Soren, never practiced scales, surprisingly worked on vibrato for 5 hours. Isn't that unhealthy? No. The geniuses, the great ones, they can do whatever they want. Actually, as a matter of fact, anybody can do whatever you want, So it depends on what gets you to a wonderful result. That's all. If Hirschhorn could achieve his phenomenal technique without practicing scales for scale's sake, I mean, obviously he practiced those scales in pieces and learned how to do the same motions on the pieces and then utilize them, right? So good for him. There are some people like that. I know of some violinists who grew up never practicing scales. Very few of them, but there are some. And I don't think as many great results will be from that sort of playing, because for most people playing scales is very beneficial, just isolating the scales and running that and listening to this, for most people. But if you're an exception and you can learn you can learn from repertoire, good for you. If Hirschhorn needed to work on vibrato for 5 hours, again, I'm pretty sure he wasn't be working for 5 hours straight, nonstop. But yeah, if he would just spend the whole day basically investigating his vibrato, good for him. Yeah, And if he did not damage anything in his hand and he didn't get tense to the point that of course, he didn't, obviously. So great. I would warn caution sometimes, who wants to follow that sort of example, to be mindful, to always be mindful. You are not necessarily him. You might be very much like him or not. And you don't want to find out in a bad way when it's too late, when you're completely overused your arm and you can't play now for a week or 2 weeks. You have to recover. So that's where we know. But all these anecdotes are really great. And a lot of them are true. Um, okay, so I think we came to my last question. And actually, whoa, I wanted to do just 1 hour today, and it's 1.5. So I have to bid you goodbye. All right, suddenly there are more. Okay, 2 more questions. I'm looking at them right now from Maciek and Michelle. That's it. Do you have any I guess it's finger strengthening things that can be used without violin or bow? Like maybe stress ball or something like that. Yes, Maciek, I will refer you to one of my videos that are done with Andra Sturzik with a hand specialist. So look for on my channel. I'm sure you're subscribed, right? So you look interviews hand specialist. Andra held hand specialist. There are 3 videos with this, and one of them she completely guides at the end of the video. There are all these exercises that she shows to strengthen the hand. Yes. And Michelle, last question. What level of playing can we honestly expect to get to the Bruch Violin Concerto to a performance standard one day? Yeah, you can. I think so. I think you can. Yeah, if you practice well and you achieve well and your stretchability is there. Yeah, I think you can do it. Thank you, Arsenio, for putting yeah. Can I share a repertoire sequence list of Yampolsky and Kilevich I mentioned? Yes, I can. It's kind of, mine is not, yeah, it's kind of Yampolsky and Kilevich with some additions already. I probably just should, I will think how to do this. I can email it to you if you write for my email, violinclassusa@gmail.com. I can do that. I have a PDF file. Or maybe we can figure out maybe to put it on our website. I will talk to my crew. Tips for section leaders. People, there are a lot of questions suddenly, and I have to go. Yes, next time when we do it, okay, please remember those, like tips for leaders and whatever. You write them down, then you have questions to ask me, okay? But for now, I will say thank you all who are here and who were here, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend, I guess, right? Saturday, yeah. Okay, I'll see you all later. Bye.